It's funny. I often hear people make the argument to me that says, "No, really, Nancy Pelosi, she is a she is a progressive. I mean, you just don't know her. If you talk to her behind the scenes, and if you squint at her in the darkness, in the moonlight, she kind of looks like no, she's not. She's not. Stop saying it. Stop saying it. She's not. She's not." Nancy Pelosi made an argument about why basically funding student debt, why they shouldn't cancel student debt. And she's talking to reporters. She's at the stand looking crazy, stirring, this kind of daisy eyed look of a person who's massively out of touch with $100 million in the bank or $200 million in the bank, making a ton of money off of the events that are going to take place and the bills that she's going to pass. But the idea that somebody's sitting there with $100 million in the bank and is like, yeah, we shouldn't cancel student debt. Okay, why shouldn't we cancel student debt, Nancy Pelosi? Explain to us. We have over $1 trillion sitting on the backs of the American public. Why shouldn't we cancel student debt? Now, personally, I think there's several reasons why we should cancel student debt. Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party has presided over a system that has basically failed. That has failed to such a degree that over $1 trillion is sitting on the backs of American citizens. Children who want to get an education, the temerity to get an education, are basically punished for that. In other countries and other nations, they want their kids to get an education. They want their kids to get an education so much that the state pays for them to get an education. Why? Because there's a benefit to that state for those kids to get an education. Each kid, each child, each person, each adult that gets an education is almost like you're rolling the dice with the more they get the education, the higher the probability that some of them will start businesses, will use that education for good ends in regards to your country and to make your country a better place, a more prosperous place, and with a higher tax base. Because all things being equal, the reason they're getting that education is so they can get a job that pays relatively well. It is a benefit, not just to the individual, but it is also a benefit to the country that individual is in. Other nations will have their kids go to school for free. Go to school for free. Those kids will then get a visa to come here and take jobs from Americans. Now understand what just took place. Yes, there's a brain drain from that particular country, but that also means that without having to pay anything, all of that money was invested in that person. And the country doesn't get to use it. That person comes here and takes the job that would have went to another American if that American would have gotten an education here. I guess I'm trying to make the point to you that people in this country on some level are getting screwed over on several accounts. And in one of those accounts, just looking from the standpoint of an overarching of a society itself, it is insane that a society will put roadblocks or will put something in the way that would prevent the kid from getting an education. And yes, if you have to pay $50,000 or $60,000 or how much ever you have to pay, that is a hindrance to getting an education. A state, a country that is in its right mind would not want to put $50,000 on an 18-year-old. That is fucking insane that is allowed. And the Democratic Party presided over that. More apropos, Joe Biden, when he was in Congress, was pushing through legislation that allowed those debts to not be written off of those kids. Meaning, you can't take this off of your bankruptcy. And over a period of time, the IRS will come after you if you go so far as the way the bill just kind of goes into the rears and the bill gets ignored. Joe Biden was infinitely responsible for enshrining that stuff into law where those debts could not be gotten rid of or expunged through bankruptcy. College debts. The Democratic Party. So it is rich for Nancy Pelosi to come out here and make this argument. It is more shocking for her to make this argument. I'm going to let her make her case. But think about what she's saying here and think about what this means. And this clip should be taken by every Republican Every time a Democrat says that they want a social program and it should be run on loop. Well, I know you guys say you want this, but Nancy Pelosi said this about student loans, and this should apply pretty much to every other social program that the Democratic Party have put out, including the $300 going to kids. Including the $300 going to kids. This argument repudiates every social program a Democrat has ever put forth, including Social Security and including Medicare. And you can even make an argument about the COVID relief. I don't have COVID. Why should I have to deal with this other stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? This is a radically self-centered argument that is so self-centered that it ignores the negative consequences for the overarching country if she got her way and if this argument carried the day. Let's hear Nancy Pelosi argue against student loans. And by the way, let's just be very clear for a moment. Joe Biden talked about canceling $10,000 of student debt himself. The powers that are enshrined within the context of the presidency allows Joe Biden to cancel all of the student debt or to do what they did with basically to put it on pause and to put it on hold where they're not going to go through collections for a period of time. The president has the power to do it. Flick of a pen. Just doesn't do it. And the Democratic Party, who has a constituency that in overwhelming numbers want them to cancel the debt, for some reason can't do it. All right, Pelosi, explain to the American public, to all of these kids that have all of this debt on their backs that's preventing them from marriage, preventing them from exploring life, taking up new careers and jobs and new opportunities and everything else, even moving into apartments and starting their life. All of these things are being limited by the trillions of dollars of debt on our backs, meaning it's not just limited to the kids. The consequences are shared all throughout the society. Let's hear Pelosi explain why this is okay.
That would be an attitude that people would have. But even take it on top of that, suppose your family was not, your child just decided they want to, at this time, not want to go to college, but you're paying taxes to forgive somebody else's obligations. You may not be happy about that. But you know what? We want all of our kids to reach their fulfillment. To the extent that they want to go to college, we do not want them to be prohibited from doing that for financial reasons. I've had high school students come in here and say with their grades, they're able to be accepted in the Ivy League here and there, but their family's economic situation does not enable that to happen because they have to stay close to home to work, to be part of the family situation. So what we'd like to do is have an economy that is fair, that gives opportunity, and does not hold anybody back because of financial reasons. And again, how some people may view the relieving people of this obligation has to be viewed in a fair way, where we have something that gives opportunity.
This is an argument that would be against public school. This is an argument that would be against not just public school, basically any government program. I mean, if you're arguing that, well, what about people who don't have kids? I mean, people who haven't had kids who decide to go to school. Okay, well, I don't have any kids. And yet, when I was in Virginia, we had to pay taxes for local public schools. Well, why do I have to pay taxes for public school if I don't even have kids? I don't even like kids. So why do I have to pay taxes for public schools? I think the wars that we've been fighting have been wasteful, and not just wasteful. I didn't want any part of it anyway. So why do I have to pay taxes? Or why should my tax dollars go to fighting these wars? You can go up and down on this. These massive tax cuts that Donald Trump gave to all of these Republicans and everything else that basically increased my taxes. There are plenty of things that the government does that I probably would not like, would not necessarily want to pay for, or don't want my tax dollars going towards. And yet, here we are. What I am okay with tax dollars going towards is eliminating student debt. That's what I am okay with. From the standpoint of COVID, I mean, what about the COVID care, the money that is going towards the vaccinations and everything else? What if I'm one of those people that don't believe the government should be spending money on that? And in the mindset of, I don't have COVID. I don't think the government should be spending money on this. I most likely wouldn't catch COVID because I could work remotely. So yeah, I don't want the government spending money on that for my taxes. This is a treacherous argument to make for a Democrat because every social program that the Democrats have put out can be undermined by this very argument. The $300 that Joe Biden is sending to kids. I don't have any kids. I don't have any kids. Why should my tax dollars go to spending $300 on these rugrats from other people who decided to have those kids? This is a treacherous argument for a Democrat. If Joe Biden is going to send $300 to rugrats all across the country, then I don't understand how you can't make the same argument for eliminating student debt. In the same way, you're going to make the argument that it is better for the society, better for the local society, better for that family, and yes, better for the larger extension of the country itself. Kids are our future. And if those kids are growing up in treacherous circumstances, that kid has a higher propensity to end up treacherous. If you deal with the living circumstance of kids as they grow up and they have the things that they need, those kids will have a higher probability of being intact and well developed. It is better for the society as a whole. If you have people who are growing up and those people want to get an education, but those people are hindered from getting an education because they don't want to take on the bills, don't want to take on the debt, or in this case, they do take on the debt, and either don't necessarily finish their education because something comes up, decide to do something else, or finish school, stuck with the debt, can't necessarily find a job, whatever the particular reason. Even if you do find a job and you have $60,000 of debt on your head at 21, is that really what we want to do for society? Especially when the other countries around the world are not doing that, those countries that we're competing against. And so in our case, instead of maximizing the opportunity, maximizing the probability and the potential to have students or to have people that are fully self-actualized, that are able to get the education, that they can be dirt poor and still end up with a PhD or with a master's or with whatever particular education that they can get. And that those people could start businesses, start companies, start new products, start new industries, etc., etc., etc. What has the higher probability from the standpoint of the number of people that will be this list of people that will start our industries and set our future? If you have a situation where people are basically punished for getting an education with $60,000 in debt, or where anybody in the country of 320 million can go to college and get an education and go to a degree that they want to go. Yes, you're going to have a percentage of people that are just duds, philosophy majors, English majors, etc., etc. But you have a higher probability of getting people that are just fucking phenomenal and that are spearheading your country, especially from the standpoint of your country being able to compete with other nations in this kind of technology or new fields, new physics, new science, new etc., new engineering, the works. It is obvious. You have a higher probability of getting those people that can fulfill those roles if you have education being open to pretty much anyone, as opposed to the limiting factor of education that you have in this country now. I am okay with paying for that because that makes my society better. I don't care if it makes those people better. I want it to make those people better. I think the people are just, I think society is just an accumulation of the people that are in it. And if those people are self-actualized, that society is just better off. If Nancy Pelosi wants to make this argument, then Nancy Pelosi needs to basically stop pushing for any social program that the Democratic Party wants, because this argument kills any and every social program, including what Joe Biden is pushing for now. If she really believes this about student debt, then she should go home. She should resign. It's time for her to retire, because this argument is utterly and entirely ridiculous. It kills any notion of government, even public education. If you're rich and you can afford public education, you can say, I agree with Nancy Pelosi. Just like I don't want my tax dollars going to education because I could fund my education, I also don't want my tax dollars going to putting these rugrats through school because I have enough money where I could send my kid to school. What a ludicrous argument. What a ludicrous argument. Like, share, and of course, subscribe. Thanks all.